welcome to Watch This with Eryk and Brandon. I'm Brandon.
And I am Eryk.
And we're going to be discussing movies. The whole concept of this podcast is we all have different tastes in movies, and television shows. And we decided to figure out how to make each other watch something that we otherwise wouldn't watch.
Right. And yeah, in a lot of ways, the movie that we're covering today is the genesis of this idea. It's American Pie, which is a movie you've seen many times that I have never seen. And it's funny because you and I couldn't be more similar. Yeah. Without planning ahead, we both wore plaid. We both have beards. We're both from Southern Ontario. We have the same job, same building. And yet there's so many things that I've seen that you haven't seen and vice versa. And that's really what this is about. And this is a conversation everybody's had. And
we're going to be giving our thoughts on the movies. Yeah, exactly. Like people say, I can't believe you haven't seen this movie. It comes up all the time in conversation when you're, have you seen this show? Have you seen Breaking Bad? Have you seen The Sopranos? And people... they're dumbfounded when you say they haven't seen it, right? So that's the whole idea of this. We're going to do commentary and give us our thoughts and what we take away from each movie and television show. And like we said, we chose American Pie this week, so that's going to be the first one that we do. And we're going to go through a whole list of different movies down the road. But I've seen American Pie. Eryk hasn't seen it, and this past Sunday we watched it together.
Right.
And
very romantic.
So yes. So our thoughts on the movie. Here we go.
And we're going to be getting my reaction, first-time viewer, your reaction as somebody who's seen it many times. Let's get a little background on the movie first.
One thing first, spoiler alert, though.
That's right.
We want to put that out there. We're going to be talking about the movie. So if you haven't seen it, then, you're going to know
that
all
being
about
said,
it.
It seems like every person on Earth has seen it, and I'm the last one.
Except you, yes.
Yeah. So you've probably seen it, but if you haven't, go watch it, and then come back here, see if your opinions are the same as ours. So a little bit of background on the movie. Came out in July 1999, and you were in high school.
I was a high school student at the time, and summertime going into grade 12, right up my alley.
Absolutely.
The movie's going to be, they didn't know if it was going to be a big hit, but it did turn out to be a big hit. And it was directed by Paul and Chris Weitz, and it was their directorial debut. And they had a budget on the movie of just $11 million.
Yeah, and this is amazing because relatively speaking, a low budget for Hollywood. And of course, first-time directors, a lot of first-time actors, which we'll get to in just a moment, but $235 million.
It blew up at the box office, and I think that was due to the fact there was probably a lot of high school kids going to see the movie, right?
Yeah, high school and college-age kids. I mean, this is right up their alley, and it's just a gross-out, R-rated, crazy comedy. And so, right up the alley of those for those people that age. And you can see why it blew up. But.
Yeah, and the so there's a couple ways that it was measured. There's a Metacritic, which takes basically a bunch of critics that are professional critics and combines all their scores together. So the Metacritic gave it a 58 out of 100. So not the highest.
Critics didn't exactly love it.
No.
I think that's fair to say. I mean, could have been worse. Could have been a lot better. But what about fans? What about
so the fan score, that's a different story.
Yeah.
This is the IMDb users. So they had a 7 out of 10.
Right, which is a whole lot
So
better.
That's a lot higher.
Yeah.
And obviously, like you said, like people are going to go by word of mouth. If somebody tells them that, this is a great movie, you got to see it, they're obviously going to go see it. So,
absolutely.
And that's why part of the reason, too, why it made $235 million.
Yeah, very popular. A lot of people have seen it. And I think most people who've seen it, if you're not a critic, probably have a decent opinion of it. Right?
Yeah.
You probably liked it
Most
for the
people
most part.
did like it, I think, that I've talked to anyway.
Absolutely.
So some of the actors in this movie, Jason Biggs.
Right.
He was
New actor.
a first-time actor, 19 years old, I think, and he was never in anything else.
I haven't seen him. That was one of the first things I thought when we started watching this movie is, here's this guy, the star of a huge comedy, $235 million comedy, and I've never seen him.
Yeah.
I've never seen him in anything else. I know he's in Orange is the New Black.
Yeah, now he is. As far as I know, recently. He did a few other movies afterwards, Saving Silverman.
Right.
And, I mean, he's still a star, but he kind of dropped off after all this stuff.
He was in the sequels,
He's still around. He was in the sequels, yeah. Also, Chris Klein, who played Osterreicher. Again, another first-time actor, not the greatest actor, but still, the role that he played, I think, was pretty good.
He looks like he should have been in NSYNC.
He
had the right haircut for NSYNC.
Thomas Ian Nicholas, who played Kevin. He was rookie of the year.
Yeah, one of the greatest pitchers the Chicago Cubs ever had.
Yes, and again, like I come back to all these new actors and how they came together and were able to do a movie and do so well and make it so successful. Yeah. Tara Reid was in it, another new actress at the time.
Yeah. I'd seen her in The Big Lebowski, which was before this, maybe a couple years at least before this. But that's really the only thing I've ever seen her in.
Yeah, and then she kind of turned into a hot mess down the road. She's in Sharknado, the Sharknado movies.
What a
now,
huge
I haven't
movie that
personally
was.
watched any of those ones, but that's a whole other story. Mina Suvari, who did her own singing in the movie.
She did her own singing, which is believable.
And you could tell.
If she sounded like Mariah Carey, I'd be like, wow, she did her own singing.
Uh-huh.
It's very believable that she did her own singing.
And how can you forget Eugene Levy?
Eugene Levy. Absolutely iconic.
Legendary.
This performance kind of made the movie for me. I mean, obviously, I'm a huge Eugene Levy fan. Canadian, of course. The funniest people come from Canada. And what's great is we mentioned that it was the directorial debut of the Weitz brothers. They knew they had a comedy superstar in Eugene Levy, and they knew, even though it was their first movie, to just let him be funny.
Yeah, let him do what he wants.
He actually improvised a lot.
And yeah, which that makes it even that much more enjoyable. The fact that he came up with those things on the spot, like it wasn't even planned. So that's always fun to watch. Allison Hannigan, we all know her from How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah,
and
big fan.
And she was good in that movie as well. And again, her lines were kind of some of her lines were improvised as well. We'll get to that a little bit later on. And Sean William Scott, Stifler.
Stifler.
Probably the best character in the movie.
Yeah, he's
one
up
of them
there.
anyways.
That's for sure. And we're going to be talking about our favorite characters later, but a little bit more about Sean William Scott. First movie. Ever.
He'd never acted before. Or maybe he did a few commercials or something.
Maybe something like that. Maybe some community theater, whatever. First movie, $8,000 is how much he got paid.
That's it. $8,000.
Yeah, I mean, it was an $11 million budget.
I'll take it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's
Why
right.
not?
And he was a young guy as well. But another funny thing is Jennifer Coolidge brilliantly plays Stifler's mom. Another iconic character from this movie, which kind of popularized a certain term.
Yes,
that is said by John Cho, I believe.
Yeah,
in the movie.
word MILF.
The word MILF,
with which obviously came. It was around from what I've heard before, but nobody really knew about it.
It was popularized by this movie. Apparently, it appeared online a couple years before this movie came out, which is funny that it appeared online.
And then they rolled
in
with
the 90s.
it, and it just blew up from there.
Absolutely. And so she was only 16 years older than Sean William Scott playing Stifler's mom in the movie. Isn't that funny?
That's crazy. Yeah, which kind of makes it a little bit less believable. Right. But nobody really knew that, I don't think, at the time either, right?
That's Hollywood.
Yeah,
also,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay, well, now that we've done that rundown, let's get the prediction. Now, I've seen the movie, American Pie. Now, Eryk has never seen the movie. So, what are your prediction? What do you think? What did you think going in that we were going to see?
Right. Well, I mean, this is kind of an easy one to predict. And I think this is something we'll do in every episode, right? Get each other to predict what the movie, TV show is going to be about before we actually watch it. So here's what I wrote down. A student, either high school or college. I didn't know it was a high school movie actually going in, but I knew it was about a student. Yeah. And I knew it was a journey to lose their virginity.
Not necessarily everybody, maybe one person, not that, but it turns out that they all wanted to.
That's
but yeah,
so it wasn't super specific.
Right.
High school movie, and turns out 4 guys are trying to lose their virginity in the movie. But so I was close. Also, I was trying to think of the title American Pie and whether or not that had anything to do with
whether
the
it was going to tie into it or not, right?
Turns out there's a pie scene later on, which we'll talk about when we get to funniest scenes. I think I had heard about the pie scene coming into the movie.
Just from talk around school or wherever,
Other people who've seen it have mentioned the pie scene, but I certainly was not prepared for what it was. So that was good. We'll talk about that a little bit later on.
Okay, so what's your reaction then as a first-time viewer for the movie?
Well, of course, as I said, I mean, this movie, probably more than any other movie, I think, people have said to me over the years, I can't believe you've never seen it. So a lot of hype going in. The bar was set pretty high. And honestly, it was good.
Yeah.
It was okay. That's what I'll say. And maybe it's just my age now, watching this high school movie.
Yeah, you're not a high school student anymore.
Maybe I would have appreciated it more. A couple things that kind of stand out for me is the characters just didn't feel believable. They almost felt like caricatures in a way, like kind of blown up versions of, people you might see out of high school.
Like different cliques and stuff almost, or
sort of. And that's another thing too, which we'll get to in just a minute, is like the separation of cliques.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just the characters didn't seem like these were actually real people. It seems like maybe they were inspired by somebody and then blown up to be this
an extra
crazy
proportion. Well, look at Stifler, right?
Stifler.
He's just an outrageous,
Right.
vulgar.
And we've known
character.
Stiflers. We've known jocks that were partiers and all this kind of stuff. But is anybody really that ridiculous?
Yeah,
and
over
real?
the
I mean,
top.
I don't think
I'm
so.
sure there are people out
well,
there.
there might be, right? But to me, it didn't feel real in that sense. Also, a little bit cheesy. Now, this is something you expect maybe from teenage movies, but like one scene that kind of comes to mind is when Oz and Stifler, they're on the lacrosse team, and they're in the middle of a game. Oz is killing it, right? Just like a superhero athlete they make him out to be, and he leaves in the middle of a game to go do something nerdy, to sing.
He's got to go
his,
sing with his love.
Right,
Yeah.
with his girlfriend. To me, that sounds like something that would be in
I gotta go,
Degrassi.
guys.
Right. It's just like that's like a teen soap opera scene
Yeah,
to me.
yeah.
And it's just like, what's this doing in this broad, raunchy comedy?
Uh-huh.
And so, I don't know. It felt cheesy at times. These were first-time actors, like we said. A lot of them were very, very young. So I didn't expect like a Meryl Streep level, performance.
Yeah, it wasn't no Oscar.
nominated.
There was no Oscar nominations in
not
there.
at
No.
all. But I just thought it was a little bit cheesy, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it could have been a little bit more realistic, like some other movies that we've seen, which we're going to get to in a minute. One thing I will say, the music, the soundtrack,
Amazing.
unbelievable.
Yeah, all total 90s soundtrack.
That's
Lots of alternative. Hole, Harvey Danger, Bare Naked Ladies, Third Eye Blind.
Speaking of Hole,
Oh.
very appropriate
yeah.
use of the band Hole.
Perfect
in the scene
to
well,
use that song.
if
Yeah,
you've seen it.
And Third Eye Blind, Semi Charmed Kind of
Yeah.
Life. I think that was in every movie in the
I think
90s.
so.
And I mean that song was huge.
Could you
back
make
then.
a movie in 98, 99, 2000 that didn't have that song?
I don't think
I'm pretty
so.
sure it was against the law.
And Blink 182 was in it. They were in the
Yeah, they were
movie
in the movie.
itself, and
Yeah.
they were on the soundtrack, and they were huge at the time. So, yeah, just a great soundtrack. Sugar Ray Dishwalla.
You're a big Dishwalla fan.
Oh yeah, they're
Give
my
me your
favorite.
opinions on Dishwalla.
I don't. Nah, I'm
Are you
not
just
going
counting
there.
blue cars every day?
Every single
That's
day.
a hot reference. That is a hot reference.
What about the clothing?
The clothing.
Yeah.
See, this is another thing I wanted to bring up because, we kind of both love this era. I love other movies from this era, and I love the music from this era. This is probably the worst era for clothing.
Even worse than the 80s?
Yes. Because at least the 80s, I don't know, there was something fun about it, and the clothes fit. See, this is a big
That's
thing.
right.
Not one male in this movie wears a shirt that fits.
And they got the baggy pants.
Baggy pants.
Yeah.
I don't know what was going on with some of the patterns on the girls' dresses.
Even
It's
the
just-
hairstyles, too.
Yeah, the hairstyles were weird. I think from like 95 to 2010 is the worst period for clothing
Really?
in human history. It's the most boring. It's the baggiest.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The baggy thing really stood out to me.
Absolutely. At least clothes in the 80s fit, and at least they were trying to have fun. Lots of neon and all that. But I hate this period
like
for
the
clothes.
clothing.
Absolutely.
So, now this was my high school era
Right.
gross out comedy. Did you have one?
Yeah, of course. It was super bad.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, 2007, I think that came out. I mean, that was, for my high school experience, that was our movie like this. Almost the exact same plot.
Almost the same concept,
Right?
yeah.
Same concept. But to me, going back to what I said about not being realistic and a little bit broad, a little bit slapsticky, right? That's what I feel about American Pie. Mm-hmm. Superbad has jokes. Like, Superbad is well written.
It's written differently, yeah.
And obviously, everybody has different comedy tastes.
And things have evolved since then, obviously,
Things
too.
have evolved,
Yeah.
but also, like, comedy's very subjective. Everybody has different tastes. Some people like, watching Stifler drink pale ale.
Yeah.
And that's the funniest thing ever. And by the way, you know how they achieve pale ale? Just a quick tangent.
Yeah. How?
Egg whites in beer.
Oh, that'll
to
do
mimic
it.
a certain male bodily fluid. So that's how they achieve that. But anyway, it's stuff like that. It's slapstick. It's like his reaction to drinking that and everything. That's what's funny. Superbad is a lot more subtle to me. It was written by, of course, Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. The characters are actually called Seth and Evan in the movie. And to me, they really nail how high school students talk to each other. Obviously, it is very raunchy, but that's realistic as well. And I just feel like, I don't know, they have more realistic conversations. It's very cheesy, as I said, in American Pie. And so to me, that movie is just, I don't know, a lot better. And you know what? Maybe I prefer it because when I first saw it, I was a high school.
You were in high school,
right?
yeah. But I agree with you though, because I've seen it too,
Right.
and I think it's a hilarious movie as well. And I didn't see it as a high school student, and I still loved it too.
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
ranks among one of my favorites for funny movies too.
Absolutely. And what about high school movies? So I think here's an interesting topic. Where do you rank some of the great high school movies of all time? Like, for example, a movie that I think we both love is Dazed and Confused.
Oh yes, by far one of the best high
Right.
school teenage
to me,
comedies.
that is the best example of this kind of movie. It's funny, it's well written, very realistic. It captures a time period that neither of us were really around for, and yet we almost feel like we know what it was like.
Yeah, you could tell how it was back then. I
Right.
mean, you see those movies and you look back and you wish that you grew up in that
Yeah.
time. Because like just the way it was done, and
Yeah.
you see how much fun they're having in the movies, and for Dazed and Confused, it was like I said, I've seen that movie probably 50 times,
Right.
and it doesn't get old for me. I can watch it over and over again,
Right.
And when I look at American Pie, I mean, I have seen it over and over again,
Yeah.
but it doesn't rank among my favorite movies.
Okay, so where does it rank? Like, just throwing out a few names. Like, if I had to rank them, I would put Dazed and Confused probably number one.
Yeah, that would be my number one.
I think Superbad probably, just because it was my era's kind of movie, my high school movie. That would be two. Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Uh-huh.
Another absolutely iconic movie. I wouldn't say it's a good movie. I think that falls into a certain category of bad movies that are still enjoyable.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of nostalgia for a lot of people. So anyway, that's a good one. I love it. Breakfast Club.
Breakfast Club is
Not-
another one I was thinking of, yeah.
Not exactly a comedy.
No.
You know, it's heavier.
It's kind of
at
dark,
times,
yeah, a little bit
but,
at times.
But just absolutely incredible. Really, really well written. So what about you?
Well, on one other thing I just want to touch
Right.
on with the movies and American Pie. In a lot of these other movies, there's a lot of drug use, right?
Yeah.
People are smoking pot, doing whatever.
Yeah.
And in American Pie, they didn't do that. And I'm not saying it took away from it.
No.
Because it still was a good movie, but they were partying and drinking,
Yeah.
but there was no drug use.
And this is something that we both noticed.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
Yeah, yeah.
It's weird that we noticed the lack of marijuana, which is funny because, like, even The Breakfast Club, which, you know, it's not a comedy. It's kind of like a heavier movie at times, and yet they're passing around a joint.
Yeah, in the
at a
library
certain
and-
point. Fast
yeah.
Times has Spicoli and his guys rolling out of the van just full of smoke, right? So it was funny to me. And it's weird that we both noticed that not a single person in
Yeah.
this movie, or maybe there is, maybe in the background somewhere. But
I
it
don't even
wasn't-
think there is, but
No.
yeah. Either way, that was just something that I noticed
Maybe
in there.
fake marijuana is too expensive and they just didn't have it. in
Yeah, or they
budget.
use the real thing. I'm
Yeah.
sure that some of them do that too.
right.
So we'll go over my reaction
Right.
to the movie because, like I said, we've seen this, and I first saw the movie in the summer of 1999.
Right.
And I was heading into grade 12. I was a high school kid. I was the exact demographic.
Right.
So everybody at my age wanted to go and see this movie. Of
course.
And right away, watching it just this past weekend brings back memories. Brings back memories of high school and what
Okay.
things were like back then. And it would appeal to a high school kid because all the stuff that was going on in the movie we were doing.
Yeah, fits
we
your
were
real
doing
life.
back at that time. So, you know, we were vulgar and we were able to relate to that because that's the way we talk to each other.
Right.
And it covers all aspects of high school life,
Right.
too. I mean, you've got the awkward talking to girls.
Yeah.
That was one of the most awkward things ever in high school. The nerds were shunned at the parties. And
this
one of the
is-
guys is in a Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, this is something I wanted to bring up. You mentioned nerds, and earlier you mentioned like the separation of like different cliques and
Yeah.
stuff. Was that around when you were in high school? Like, was it that separated?
It was, but again, we were friends with. I tried to make friends with everybody, right? I mean, not everybody per se, but
Yeah.
like different groups. So you
Right.
had the jocks, you had the nerds, you had the smokers, you had the goths.
Yeah,
you had, and I found like I was friends with at least one person in every
Right.
one of those groups. So,
But the lines were drawn.
but there was you could
Okay.
you knew who was who, and
See, because that almost disappeared by the time I was in high school. And maybe not for every high school, and maybe not for everywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But for my high school, watching some of these movies from, I would say, 90s, 80s, and back, if they're based in a high school, to me, I always see this separation of there's the nerds, there's the jocks, there's whatever. At our high school, it wasn't like that.
It wasn't like that, eh?
You know, you would see the football players wearing their jackets walking down the hall, but then one would walk into the music room,
Mm-hmm.
and then one would walk into the theater area or whatever. And it just, the lines weren't drawn.
Yeah.
And I don't remember seeing anybody that fit like a stereotypical nerd from like a movie. You know what I mean? We didn't really have the nerds.
Yeah, not like with the pocket protectors and the glasses, and you know, I'm not saying they're all nerds, but no, no smokers. They didn't have a smoking section outside.
Oh, we did.
Okay, so and another thing too, it was the early stages of online dating and webcams and stuff like that. Now, I mean, social media has blown up so much, but back then, you had webcams, and there's parts in the movie where they. Where they like it's kind of just flashed onto the screen that he's online dating, right?
Yeah.
And now online dating is so accepted, and maybe back then it wasn't.
Yeah,
but,
maybe like if you were an awkward guy like Jim in 1999, you would be using online dating because how else are you going to strike up a conversation?
Exactly, because you don't know how to talk to girls, and
now
this and
it's
that.
millions of people are doing that. And you mentioned social media. That was another thing that separates your high school time from my high school time, because in reality, you graduated and I started high school only 6 years apart. Yeah. And yet couldn't be more different.
Oh, no.
Because we had MySpace and Facebook and stuff like that. It was all kind of starting and really gaining steam at the time. Mm-hmm. And that was, that pretty much started, I think when I was in grade 10, that really kind of started to take off. And then for the rest of high school, it's all about social media. Yeah. We had texting already when I was in high school.
Yeah, we weren't even texting it. Well, I wasn't anyways.
When did you get your first cell phone?
My first cell phone, like 2006.
Okay. See,
which is,
that's
it's
when
crazy.
I started high school. Yeah. So it's crazy how different, even though it's only 6 years apart. But
how things change and evolve so fast. Yeah.
But to you, this movie really, because it is from that era, sums up what your high school experience.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, maybe we weren't running around so hard trying to lose our virginity, right? I mean, like we obviously think about that. Yeah. But at the same time, it's not that wasn't the be all end all.
Right. And you probably weren't having conversations at the local restaurant
about
guys,
having
we gotta have a pact to, right. And another cheesy aspect.
Yeah, that stuff didn't happen. So but so that was my reaction to that, and
does it hold up?
It does, because it's always been a favorite movie of mine. Maybe it's not the same. Maybe I don't feel the same about it as I did when I was in high school, because I am older now, obviously. And but it still holds up. I still enjoy the movie. I still think it's funny. Yeah. The nostalgia is good. So I would say it does hold up for me.
I could see why it stuck around. I mean, 20 years. July 99, so we're coming up on the 20-year anniversary, and like I said, I mean, just before we walked in here, I told a bunch of people we were talking about American Pie, and they all said, I can't believe
they were dumbfounded.
Everybody. And so I could see totally why this has stuck around, why it made so much money initially. And let's talk about the movie a little bit. Favorite scenes, right? Because I thought the movie was funny, even though I had some issues with it, a little cheesy, all that kind of stuff, and maybe that's just me not having seen it when I was younger, but there were some really funny scenes. So, funniest scene for you?
For me, I think it's it's a toss-up. The pie scene.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's classic.
We mentioned the pie scene earlier.
Who's going to think that that's going to happen in a movie? Like, I mean, even a movie called American Pie, you're not expecting to see that, And
that's exactly it. That's what I was trying to put together. Like, American Pie, what's this movie
what does this have to do with it? And I mean, turns out it has a small part to do in the movie, but I mean, it's hilarious.
Some would say a very big part.
Yeah.
I think that's a big point in the movie, that's for sure. What about just the opening? See, that's probably where I laughed the most in this movie, was right at the beginning. And it kind of set the tone for the movie.
And what it was going to be about, and what it was going to be like.
Right, because we knew what he was doing. He was in his bedroom alone.
Yeah.
He was watching something on the TV, or trying to.
Scrambled.
Anyway. Lucas, our producer, just made an interesting gesture. He knows what we're talking about. Right, scrambled. So this is something, again, my generation never had to deal with.
You never had to. Oh, I know all about the scrambled television. Geez. Oh, we tried. But yeah, and his parents come in and walk in on him.
It was hilarious. And again, knowing that Eugene Levy improvised those lines, absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. So that movie, that part is hilarious. Stifler's first party that they're kind of setting up at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite line in the movie that is scripted, which I've been repeating many times since Sunday, is, of course, Sherman, what are you doing here? And that made me laugh so hard.
You laughed harder than anything in the whole movie.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I've been repeating it over and over again. And the thing is,
the delivery of how he did it, yeah.
Right, going back to what I said about Superbad, that has like jokes, that is witty, well-written stuff. That is, it's just a vulgar kind of line, but he absolutely nailed it. So funny.
Yeah.
And so I love that whole scene. And then, of course, we get the pale ale in that sequence
in
and
that
everything.
whole party scene.
So, yeah, that was really great. I also love the dancing.
Oh, God. He's like stripping in his room,
right.
dancing on the chair, and Nadia's watching him,
right.
and
forcing him, really.
And everybody else is watching
That's
him, too,
right.
at the time. And we're going to get to that a little bit later at
that.
the end of the show about the whole webcam situation.
Yes.
But yeah, that's a great scene. I mean, he's dancing, he's trying to hide the fact that the camera's watching him, and then it just
and see, from a first-time actor, 19-year-old actor, who's really trying to make an impression, like just going for it.
Yeah.
And that almost even makes it funnier knowing that this guy's like, okay, I'm sticking around. I'm going to be a comedy guy from now on.
Yeah.
And I'm going all out with
And I
this.
think that kind of reflected in his future roles was the comedy. He was kind of the slapstick guy and comedy. And he never really did anything too serious, I don't think. Not that I recall anyway. So yeah, there were some laugh out loud moments throughout the whole movie. And as far as characters go, we kind of alluded to who our favorite characters are.
There is one that I definitely want to mention that we haven't really talked about yet, which is Michelle.
Oh, yes. Alison Hannigan. Yeah.
I'm at Bandcamp.
Yeah.
Right? So here's the thing about that inflection in her voice and everything. She did that the entire time. Like, even when she wasn't on camera.
So she stayed in character.
She stayed in character the whole time, annoyed herself because every sentence ends in an upward inflection.
Yeah.
But she did that the entire time. And then speaking of improvising, because Eugene Levy, they let him just kind of do what he wanted. She improvised her best line in the movie, which is when she and Jim are in bed together and she says, "Say my name." Well, we've all seen it, but very, very funny. And that just came off the top of her head. And they're like, well, that's gold.
Yeah. So they left it in.
Yeah. I'm on team Alison Hannigan for life, I think. I mean, I saw her in How I Met Your Mother.
She's a great actress. She's funny, yeah.
This was a great performance, one of my favorite characters. And then, of course, Jim's dad, Eugene Levy, Stifler. We touched on them before. I mean, these are the characters I think that, not having seen the next couple American Pies, which you've seen the sequels, I would imagine Jim's dad and Stifler probably more in the forefront.
Yeah, they make more of an appearance in the other movies, definitely.
I would imagine
and,
so. I mean,
Stifler gets more obnoxious, as if he already could, but he does. So he was actually one of my favorite characters in the movie, Stifler, just because he was so over the top. And I mean, I don't compare myself to him because I was in no way like him in high school, but you still could relate to the fact of how he was, and you knew people like that. You knew people who were over the top and outrageous and vulgar and rude and to everybody.
And then jock type attitude.
Exactly.
And, all that kind of stuff, the way they talk to people. Yeah, what a great character, and amazing that it was his first movie. So now this brings us on to our kind of final topic to wrap up American Pie. Is this movie woke?
Yes. Is it? Could it last? Because it stand up to the
test of time.
The test of time. And
could this movie be released as it is in 2019? Now, Brandon, you and I are both technically millennials, although there is a massive age difference between us.
Massive.
I'm
glad you pointed that out.
We're the Pete Davidson and Kate Beckinsale of podcasting.
Oh, yeah.
Which, by the way, another hot reference.
There you go.
Right, hot off the press. And also, one of us is really good looking and one of us is a lot older. So, see, this is the thing. So there's a lot of similarities here. But is it woke? You don't know what woke means.
Well, no, I didn't.
This is a term us millennials.
I guess.
But as we've established, you are way on the older end of millennials. So here goes. This is from Merriam-Webster's dictionary.
Okay.
It's in a legitimate dictionary. Aware of and actively attentive to important facts and issues.
Okay.
That's what woke means. So will people go on Twitter and tweet about certain moments of this movie if it came out as is today in 2019?
I think they would.
I think they would about one scene in particular. Because, I was actually surprised that there wasn't more politically incorrect talk in this movie. Right? I mean, it was vulgar, sure, a lot of sex talk, which is what the movie is about, but there wasn't anything super politically incorrect. But then there was one major glaring scene that would not fly today.
And it was the webcam
It was
scene.
the webcam
It
scene.
was, he sets up the webcam to watch a girl change in his bedroom, sends the link to his friends, accidentally sends to everybody.
The whole school.
And,
even Blink-182 sees it.
With today's everything's Me Too movement and all that stuff, I mean, that would never fly.
Well, I mean,
I don't think they could even put that. I don't think they would even think of putting that in a movie.
You would
now.
not even think of it. Like just a couple years ago, right? Certain celebrities had private photos end up online.
Got hacked and on their cloud accounts. Yeah.
So the fact that a kid in this movie knows that a teenage girl, by the way, is going to be changing in his bedroom, sets up a camera so everybody can see it.
Not gonna go.
That would be cut in the 2019
Yeah,
version.
and that would strike up some big conversation on social media as well.
But I'm surprised that a lot of the movie probably wouldn't need to be changed.
No.
Besides that, which is interesting because I thought for a comedy like this, and at the time, 20 years ago, that it would have a lot more words, shall we say, that are kind of banned in today's
that are kind of frowned upon to be used in public.
Absolutely. So just some final thoughts on the movie. You know, first time viewing, the bar was high going into this. A lot of people have set it up for me. I'm glad I finally saw it because I feel like I've been out of the loop now for 20 years. And very funny. And it was enjoyable. Obviously, had some issues with it, as I said. You know, a little cheesy at times or whatever. But then again, it is a high school movie. So maybe that's to be expected. I completely understand why it had staying power. And I think if I saw it, if I was your age and I saw it when it came out in high school, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more. But yeah, overall, I liked it. And I definitely don't want to say anything too negative about it because I feel like a lot of people are going to be down my throat about that. But yeah, I definitely did enjoy it and thought it was pretty funny.
All right. Well, there's our podcast on American Pie. Yeah. Now, we're going to be doing different movies and TV shows down the road. So next week, we're going to be watching a movie that I've never seen before, and Citizen Kane. And it's literally the opposite of American Pie.
It is. As far as Hollywood movies go, there is no two further movies that are apart than Citizen Kane and American Pie, because one is critically acclaimed and one is not, the one we saw today. And also one is has legendary status, right? Citizen Kane, it's at the top of all these lists and all this kind of stuff. It's definitely a film nerd movie. And you know, people like me who like to call ourselves film buffs, you know, we love this movie and we watch it all the time. But
I've never seen it.
Never seen it. No.
And I've never thought once about watching it either. I would never think, hey, I should watch Citizen Kane this week because, you know, it's just not one. It's a 1940s movie and it's just not something that I would, that would appeal to me. So that's what's going to make this interesting when we watch it, I think.
Do you know anything about it?
I know a few things. I know that it's basically about a guy that owns a big newspaper or something like that, I think. And I know there's a red sleigh. So the movie's a red sleigh. A sleigh.
The sleigh color doesn't come into effect.
Oh, okay.
But there is a sleigh.
Okay. That's about all I know. That shows you how much I know about the movie.
Basically, you know nothing about it.
No.
So do you think you will like it?
That's another good question. I don't know. I mean, I can't remember the last time I watched even a black and white movie.
Okay.
You know, so I mean, you've raved about it, said how good it is, and I trust that you know what you're talking about when it comes to movies.
I do.
So I think I will. I think I'll enjoy it.
You think you will?
I think
now,
so.
One other person in this room has seen it, and our producer Joe here. Do you think, yes or no, Brandon will like the movie?
You think so? Okay.
He does.
He does. Okay.
Okay. Well, high hopes going in. So there it is. Next week, Citizen Kane. Looking forward to it. For producers Joe and Lucas, Eryk and Brandon, watch this.
Thanks for tuning in.